A very good afternoon to everyone watching this presentation. Due to recent and unfortunate events, the pandemic has stopped our opportunity to meet and my presentation to be done physically. Nevertheless, I will present the Indie Python program I had made for the company virtually instead. Before we proceed any further, allow me to introduce myself. I am Kazim Chin Shen, a passionate student taking Foundation in Computing that is looking forward to a career of game development. This program will act both as a solution to my client's request, as well as a stepping stone for my future career. Firstly, let us discuss what problems this program is meant to solve and how it acts as a solution. TBN Games, the client, has requested for a brand new and unique idea for a game that targets and attracts tabletop RPG players. This idea has not been explored fully, and I believe it has the potential to strike the market as a unique and interesting game. My program, Tales of Toridan, is a text-based RPG that uses narrative styles of visual novels to tabletop RPG combat systems such as calculations and dice rolling. Before we begin with the presentation, let us go over what I will cover in this presentation. Firstly, I will talk about the mission statement, then a quick overview of my program that includes a sample run of the program, as well as explaining the code behind saving and loading, combat, and narrative. The mission for the presentation is to explain and explore my program, Tales of Toridan, in terms of features and technicalities. We will now go over the non-technical aspects of the program. Let us now move on to a sample run of the program. As you can see over here, the player is given two choices, to load or to start a new game. When he chooses to start a new game, he is then shown that there's already a previously saved game and asked whether he would like to override it. When he does choose to override it, the previously saved game is then deleted and a new game is started. As shown over here, there's a loading screen prepping the player and showing the name of the game and the world that he's in. So here you can see the starting development of the story, that you, as a player, found yourself in the void and hearing some voices from the void. So you speak and you choose your character name. So for now I'll use my own name. And then it then explains the story and the context of the game. So in summary, it basically explains that you have died in your current world and that you're about to be reincarnated in a different world named Toridan. And as you see over here, you are now proceeded to the tutorial. You are given the choice to skip the tutorial if you already know what to do, and you are also given the choice to accept and choose to not skip the tutorial, which I will show now. It will then show you three things that you can learn about: the stats, the classes, and the skills. You are then here given a choice to choose whatever you want to learn about. So for now, I'll just for example's sake, I'll show that I would like to learn about the classes. And it will then explain that there are three classes with different styles, and that each classes has different main statistics. So the warrior, the ranger, and the magus, each of them has different main stats. So after every tutorial, it then loops back and asks you whether you would like to exit the tutorial. You can choose no and question and learn something else, or you can choose yes and proceed with the game. So I will exit the tutorial here, and then now we'll proceed to the character creation. Reiner then asks me what class I would like to be. So there's three selections as shown in the tutorial just now: the warrior, the ranger, and the magus, each of these having different playstyles and different skills. I would like to choose the ranger, which specializes in finding weaknesses in the enemy and using that to your advantage. So he confirms whether I want to choose, and just for example's sake, I would say no, and it will loop back and ask for another selection. But since I would like to use the ranger, I'm going to choose the ranger again, and I'll proceed with the selection. So he then tells me that he'll bring me to the sharpest center sharpshooter named Rufus, and this begins the training, where you will learn and gain your first ever skill. So Rufus basically talks to you slightly and explains to you what Rangers needs to do and then gives you another character creation tool, which helps you to select a skill. Now, different presets of skills are given depending on what class you chose. So for the Ranger, there's 3 skills: the True Shot, the Impairing Shot, and the Backflip, each of them having different skill sets and doing different things. So for now, I'll use the Impairing Shot. I would like to learn the Impairing Shot, and it then gives a brief description of the Impairing Shot. Now, when you choose Yes, it will assign Impairing Shot as your first skill that is located in your character stat.py, which I will explain further in a bit. So I would like to learn this skill, and it asks whether I would like to save my game. Now this will be interesting and one of the main technical aspects of this program. So I would like to save my game, which to then I can continue in another session later, which I will show as well. So my game has been saved and I can continue into my practice battle. When you enter combat, it first prints out the enemy's name, the enemy's HP, as well as the stats. So you can press enter to begin the combat, and then you are given this screen of choosing actions. As now it is my turn, I can see my current HP, my current mana point, and the enemy's current health point. So for now, I would like to choose attack, and it fires an arrow and rolls a random number from the dice, and that calculates into my damage dealt to Rufus. Now it says that Rufus now has 62 HP left. So when I enter, it is now his turn. He kneels down and pulls his bow back all the way, and he's charging for a powerful attack. When I see this, I know that it's gonna do a massive damage attack, so I will choose to defend. When I defend and prepare for the upcoming attack, the next damage that I'm taken is halved. As you can see over here, he releases a powerful shot, and because I defended against it, I reduced the damage in half, and it only dealt me 12 damage. And now I have 68 HP left. Now this continues on. As you can see, I attack, and when he backs off and prepares for his next attack, for my next attack, and this is where my skill comes in. So the skill that I learned, named Impairing Shot, is used when the enemy is defending and standing still. That gives you a chance to immobilize the enemy by shooting his legs and immobilizing him, and losing his next turn. So I'll use my Impairing Shot and fire into his leg while he defends. Now I rolled a 6 and did a massive damage to the enemy, and doing double damage, as well as immobilizing the enemy. As the enemy is immobilized, you can see here that his turn is completely skipped. So now it is my turn again, and I'll finish him off with my last attack, which I deal to him, and he is still alive. So now he fires an arrow, but I'm still alive, and I will finish him with this attack. Yes. So now you can see that the battle is now over, and that it asks me whether I would like to save my game. So I would like to choose no, and proceed with the game. Now remember that I saved my game before this happened, so before the fight against Rufus. So for now, I will show you. Then I'm given the choice to load, as usual, in the menu screen, and when I choose to load, it will load the game that I previously saved. And as you can see over here, it flies and loads straight back to where I was, which is the combat against Rufus. This is very useful and can help players understand and continue where they've left off if they cannot finish the whole game in a single playthrough. Now that concludes my sample run as well as the description of the game. For this program, many of the modules have imported default modules that comes with the installation of Python. Firstly, my dialogue and narrative modules import the time module, helping and enabling the possibility of creating delays between texts to help the players in reading the text line by line, rather than everything at once. Next, I also imported the OS module to tamper with the console screen and check file sizes for reasons I'll explain later. Though used only rarely, I imported the sys module to end and exit the module preemptively when I needed to. Lastly, I imported the random module to randomize integers and choose choices from a list randomly. This program has 12 modules in total, with most modules filled with functions that can be imported and ran from the main game, the main program linking all the functions and modules. Car Create is a module made with functions of skill and car selection. Dialogue text prints sections of time dialogues and narrative. menu includes the main menu, as well as logic gates to decide if players can save or load. Combat includes the combat system and the enemy AI. Skill has multiple functions that are imported into combat when a player activates a skill. Enemy gen generates random enemies or a set boss. Save load consists of saving and loading systems. Tutorials are functions that creates interactive tutorials for the player. And finally, config, car stat, and enemy stat are variables that are used by other modules. You might be wondering, why bother making so many modules? The key reason is due to the ease of finding sections of the code and making the total number of lines in each module less, effectively increasing the speed that I will work in. Furthermore, by separating and categorizing the modules, it'll be easier to add new content into the game as we only have to focus on changing bits and parts as well as rerunning some of the previously programmed functions. Now, let's move on to different technical aspects of the program. We will now break down and explain the saving and loading system. Before we talk about the saving and loading system, let me explain the module closely related to the save and load system. The menu module creates a main menu at the start of the game that allows the player to choose between creating a new save file or loading the previously played game. To prevent the player from loading a save file that does not exist, I check if there is a previously saved file so that the menu can prompt the players if they want to overwrite their previously saved file or to notify that there are no previously saved game. If the player chooses to overwrite the previous save file, the program uses truncate function to remove the contents of the save file. Now, how do I check if there's a previously saved file? This is the secret line of code that I use to check if the file is empty. By importing the OS module, I unlock the possibility of checking file sizes using the operating system. I use this to my advantage by checking if the text file for the save is empty. As empty text files have 0 bytes of data, and even a single character will stop it from being 0 bytes, I can use this to check if the save file is empty and if there's anything to load. Let us move into explaining the saving and loading system. The save load module has two main functions, save and load. However, only the save function has a logic gate as it will ask and prompt the player if he wants to save his or her progress. This code is used for the saving of data. Information of the character, such as current health points, character class, and the progress of the story, is stored in this format of strings separated by commas. By opening the save file.txt using the write mode, it will delete and overwrite any data that is previously saved and prevent any errors in the format of text in the output. The load function, however, opens the file as f and in read-only mode. The data is then put into a variable named load data and separated by using the split function inside a for loop. The separated list of information is then assigned into the designated variable in the carstat module containing all the character information using their list index. Now let us understand and break down the most exciting element in the game, the combat. Firstly, in the combat code, a boolean variable named combat phase is set to true to show that the player is currently in combat. This is then used in a while loop to keep the combat going until it reaches the loop end condition. The loop breaks when either the character or the enemy's health point has dropped to 0 or below. When this occurs, the combat phase variable is then set to false, effectively breaking the loop and stopping the combat from proceeding further. In the start of combat, a variable named combat turn is assigned to a randomized integer between the range 0 and 1. This basically decides whether the player or the enemy gets the first turn in the combat. In the end of every turn, the combat turn is then set to 0 or 1, depending on whose turn it will be next. When combat turn is 1, it is the player's turn, and 0 refers to the current turn being the enemy's. This is looped until the combat ends. Finally, let us understand the code behind the narrative aspect of the game. The time import is used to create delays between dialogue, and this line of code is used to clear the console screen, keeping it clean and easy to follow. Thank you guys so much for watching my presentation, and I hope you guys have a great day.